Hey, everybody, and welcome. Thank you so much for coming back to the Scale with Joy Summit. I am here with Shannon Wilburn. She's the founder and CEO of Just Between Friends Consignment Sale. And I would love, Shannon, just for you to just get started and letting us know a little bit about how you started and then where you are today with your business.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, Laura. So my company is called Just Between Friends, and we are a franchise system. And our concept is basically a marketplace for families to buy and sell gently used children's and maternity clothes, toys, and baby equipment. And we do that by having our franchise owners market to their territories. They have protected territories, and they market to families. Really, our core demographic is families with children ages 0 to 5. And they market to them to bring their gently used children's and maternity clothes, toys, and baby equipment to an event that is a really short event, typically 2 times a year in each territory, where families can come and sell their items. They're called consigners, and shoppers can purchase items at 50 to 90% off. And our concept also has a real fun little culture piece to it, where all of our franchises benefit in part local nonprofits. And at the end of 2018, I think in our metrics that since the inception of our franchise system, that our consigners in all of our 151 territories in 31 states had given away $23 million.
Oh my gosh.
After thousands of people had come through and shopped, there's always things that are unsold, and families can determine if they want to donate that or if they want to come back and pick it up. And so that's kind of a little fun, because there's life after even our events. Those items can go to families maybe who don't have money to come shop. So it's really fun. We've been franchising for 15 years, and we're located in the great state of Oklahoma, Tulsa, Oklahoma. Not the hotbed of franchising, but we've loved it.
Yeah. So I think I was saying before we got on the call, I was like, a lot of people have probably been to the sales, been to the Just Between Friends sales. When I mention it to people that you're part of the summit, they're like, oh my gosh, like I shop there. But a lot of people don't think of you as the stereotypical, like corporate franchisor, 31 states, hundreds of locations, hundreds of sales. And when you started, you probably felt like, did you have this big vision to get it to this point?
No, I didn't. I'll tell you kind of an entry point into why we even started this concept. When I was 12 years old, my dad was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, and he was CFO of an oil and gas company. So we had plenty of money, had just built a beautiful custom home, had 2 brand new cars in the driveway. I have a twin sister, so we were 12. Yes. And we had clothes in our closet with tags on them, and really, wanted for nothing. And then he got sick and went on disability, and went from a cane to a walker to a wheelchair in 6 weeks. And my sister and I learned that that was not how everyone lived.
Yeah.
We had to be introduced to the budget. And this is your clothing budget, Shannon and Tara. And this is how much you have to spend for the entire year on your clothes. And we realized that our money was not going to go very far. We learned about consignment as an early junior high girl, and not to buy anything unless you absolutely loved it, and not to pay full price. And so that was kind of my introduction into consignment, was just the need I had in my own life to still wear hip clothes and still be perceived well with my attire. When I got married, I married a pastor, and youth pastor, so not a vow of poverty, but close to it. We shopped consignment for ourselves, and when we had kids, we continued to shop consignment, and I wanted to stay home with my kids. So that was kind of the really impetus behind Just Between Friends, is I wanted to stay home, and so I had to find a way to contribute to my family's income. And it was not, hey, I want to have a franchise system. It was like, hey, I have friends who dress their kids really cute, and I'll get to shop in their closet first. So let's do it. My co-founder, Daven Tackett, and I started the company in 1997 in my living room, and we convinced 17 of our friends to bring us their gently used children's and maternity clothing. And we sold $2,000 in my living room. Someone tried to buy my couch. We used the kitchen drawers as cash drawers, and that's how it started. And it was a need in my life to be able to buy items. And apparently it was a need in a lot of people's lives. And I think going through, we didn't start franchising until we had done the business in Tulsa for 6 years and kept having moms in other states and cities come to us and say, hey, will you help me get started? And so no business training here. Now, of course, I have real experience, but my degree is elementary education and my co-founder's degree was journalism. So we had skills like everyone has, but just maybe not necessarily in the places that we need to have them to grow a business.
So when you felt like you needed to level up your skills, like let's say as you're growing, you're, scaling, this is starting to unfold, the path is starting to become clear that this is going to become bigger than your living room. Right. What were some of those points in which you were like, I'm going to have to get some help here?
That really started from the beginning, Laura. Like,
did it?
I knew that I did not know anything about business. And so I'm a good question asker. And so I would ask questions. And if I didn't know how to do something, I was scrappy enough to figure out how to get it done. Yeah. Case in point, for those people who are listening, I'm 49 and I started this when I was 27. So I've been doing it for 22 years now. And if you can think way back when, internet had just come about and email had just come about. So, small business did not have a presence on the internet, but I was like, I need to get us online. Yeah. And I was like, how do I do this? So we had first hired someone to do it for us and they were non-responsive. They weren't changing the website when we needed things to be changed. And I was like, I can do this. So I took a class at the local community college and learned how to do my own website. And I was I think I was 30 at the time when I took the class, 30 or 30. I was in my 30s and everyone, in the class was college age and they could tell that I was the oldest person. But anyway, we figured it out, got online, and that was that's kind of how I do things is I either figure out how to do it myself or I get someone with more expertise to be able to execute on my company's behalf. And that's worked really well for us. And many, 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 I have thousands of examples.
And so I think for some people, they may be at a point in their business right now where they're kind of feeling like, I do need that extra help. But they have a little bit of shame maybe around being like, I should know this. If I just had an MBA, if I just was connected, like they may be feeling bad about themselves for feeling like they should be doing better or know better. What would you say to that person?
So first off, I'm going to recommend a book called The E-Myth. Yeah. And so if, I don't know, have you read that book, Laura?
Yes. And I highly recommend it too.
That is it's a great, it talks about scaling your business. And if you want to scale your business, there are certain things that you need to do. And what I took away from this book, among many things, was the fact that when you're an entrepreneur and you want to scale your business, when you start it, you have to create an organizational chart for your company. Yeah. And, if you want to be the CEO, you put yourself at the top. If you want to bring on other C-level people, a chief marketing officer, a chief financial officer, whatever, I guess the guidance in the book is to envision yourself 20 years from where you are now and what will your company need 20 years from now to continue operating, continue to grow, and continue to be successful. And think about all those things. Okay, well, this will be the financial department, this will be the marketing department, and I'll need a social media person, I'll need a digital marketing person, I'll need a content person, and I need this department, and I've got to put these people in these positions. And he said, get those bubbles written down, your organizational structure, and then put your name in every spot.
Yeah.
And as you go through your scaling your business yourself, those things that you are doing in your business, whether it's emptying the trash or taking care of the accounting or taking care of the website or coaching other people, whatever it is, the things that take you longer and that you hate to do are areas where you have to use your accommodating skills to do them. And takes longer, and you're not as efficient with your time. And so the goal is for you to put someone else's name in that spot as soon as possible, because then you then get to go work in your strengths.
Yeah.
So understanding your strengths is a good place to be. I think also a lot of times it may not be our pride that's saying, oh gosh, I should be able to do this.
Yeah.
It is money a lot of the time.
Yeah, right.
I want to give an example on pride. I had a mastermind group of 4 women. It was me and 3 women. We were all small business owners a few years ago, and we would meet every 6 weeks to talk about challenges, issues, successes, just kind of get together to brain dump. Because if you're a businesswoman, that may not be your circle of friends,
Right.
It's hard sometimes to have those business conversations with people who maybe are not interested in talking about metrics and your marketing strategy and all of that. But it was really good for me to be able to have a group of friends that were also in the same boat, and we could talk about those things. And so we got together, and one was like, oh my gosh, my blog, I'm doing this on my blog. And another was like, I'm doing this on my blog. And the other one was like, I'm doing this on my blog. And they're like, what are you doing on your blog, Shannon? And I was like, I don't have a blog. They're like, you don't have a blog, and I don't let people guilt me.
Did you feel a little blog shamed?
No, I didn't. I probably should have. They convinced me, like, you really need to do this. This is great for your marketing strategy. And so I went home. I was like, okay, I'm going to do the blog.
I can see you doing that.
I was mad. I was like, oh. So I sat down. I can't remember where I sat. I think I may have took a picture of myself because I was like, I am writing a blog. And I sat down 5 hours. 5 hours to write this blog. And I was like, this is crazy. And then I had to do it the next week. Like something that you have to be doing. And I'm like, I am not spending, have you heard of genius time? Like it's not a way to spend your time. And so I was like, I don't like doing this. The end product is not that great. And so I picked up the phone and called someone and hired them to write my blog. If I can't do it and we need to be doing it for our franchise owners, we got to get this done. So, but that was really freeing, honestly, to take some business advice, know that it's not my strength, and put someone else in that position. But that has not always been the case, right? Because it takes funds to hire people. And so I think you have to be really strategic in where you put your funds. And what I have seen in my business, I know this is not for everyone, but when you get to that certain point where you need to make a hire, but you're like, that's going to be $30,000 or $50,000 or $100,000, whatever, the need is. And you're like, that's not going to go in my pocket now.
Yeah.
What it does for your work-life balance, what it does for the longevity of your company can be significant. And so you have to kind of look at that as an investment. I know I think for the first 5 years of both of the businesses I've started, I don't think I paid myself. And I was reinvesting those funds back into the business so that we could get to the point to where we are now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. And if some people are listening, they're like, 5 years. Franchising, that is the path of franchising. Yeah. So Shannon and I met because I had franchised my company, and it takes a long time to become profitable as a franchisor. And that's just to know about that path. It doesn't necessarily mean that all paths are 5 years to profitability.
We bootstrapped our company, so we did not go out and find investors or take any venture capital or private equity or anything like that. I don't know that they would have had us, quite frankly. But, so I just didn't even know you could ask for people to invest in your company. This is before really I knew any of that stuff. So we just kind of made it work and ate beans and rice sometimes. And but anyway, it worked out.
So good. And so are there any other points in your journey where then you had to level up again? Yes. Who you were either surrounding yourself with or the types of programs that you were investing in?
So it's interesting that you're asking this question because I had breakfast this morning with another gal that's in franchising, and I was kind of telling her this story that about 3 years ago, we made the decision that we were going to bring on an advisory board, and not a board of trustees, not a board of directors.
Yeah.
With fiduciary responsibilities, but these are basically a board of advisors. So people who are really smart and wise in their own area of expertise. And I didn't need a full-time person in that role, but I needed someone who I could pick up the phone and call them at a moment's notice and get a tidbit of good information, and they would know about my company. I wouldn't have to spend an hour, onboarding them to what Just Between Friends is and where we were. Right. And it took me, I think we decided in 2016 that we were going to move in that direction, but I had to actually budget for it for my 2017 calendar. And then we had to find the right people for the right seats. And so kind of as I was going through it, I was thinking, where are my areas of weakness in leadership?
Yeah.
And for me, that was technology. Mm-hmm. I care about technology. I want technology. I want our franchisees to have technology, but the time and effort that it takes to fully understand all of that and execute on the project management of getting it going and how next and all of that. I had done that for years, but we were to a different point where we needed someone with a higher level of expertise than Shannon Wilburn.
Yes.
I was looking for a technology person. I was looking for a financial person. I have financial acumen to a limited degree, and that's been learned over 22 years of doing business, but lots of blind spots, and really don't want to work on that side of it. I want the end result of that being done well, but I don't want to spend the time on it myself. And so I needed some advisors there, and I needed just a generalist in franchising, lots of experience in franchising. And then I wanted someone else who had founded their company to come alongside me, and someone who had founded their company and made an exit, successful exit, to come alongside me and help us figure out those blind spots, maybe what we were doing wrong, and had time to give to us, right? So they had exited, so they would have time, and they weren't growing their company at a fast rate like we were. So those were the people that I went to look for, and we now have 4 advisory board members, and we implemented that in July of 2017. And it was kind of, if I'm being honest with this group, it started becoming apparent that maybe my capacity to lead in those areas was very limiting on the company. And so it's just kind of looking at your area of weaknesses and putting someone in that spot where it's their favorite thing to do. And then it's fun, excuse me. So we put that in place. We have quarterly meetings with them, and they have helped in a significant way in our growth trajectory.
Wow.
2.5, 3 years. And like in a big way, a big way. So that's just one thing.
That's so good. And is it okay to ask, do you pay these people?
I do pay them.
Okay.
I also paid someone to help me put this together. And I'm gonna tell you that I don't pay them much. And it's going to depend on who you ask what they will work for, right?
Yeah.
So if this were a true board, board of directors or whatever, lots of times what I've been told, they get paid off of, if it's a publicly held company, they may be shareholders and have some type of equity at them. If it's a private company, they may just get an annual salary or get paid per board meeting or whatever. And so I think it's just really important, if you need to set up an advisory board, to communicate up front, this is what I have to pay you.
Yeah.
Totally understand if you're like, peace out, I'm not doing it for that. This is what I have to pay you. I love your expertise. This is not a life sentence being on my board. So if you get my advisory board, it's not working out for you, the time invested for the money is not working for you, then hey, tell me. We'll still be friends. I'll still probably call you on the side when I need advice, but you won't have to attend meetings. And we do 2-hour phone calls, right? Because I'm trying to limit the expense every quarter. And then we do one of those quarters. It's usually in the summertime, like it's coming up July 30th in Minneapolis. I'm meeting with my advisory board, and they're just flying in for one night. We'll have a 3-hour in-person meeting. We'll go to dinner, and then everyone can go home the next day. So it's just a little bit of FaceTime because all the other ones are just, phone conversations. And I will tell you, I don't pay them much, like $500 per meeting.
Okay.
So if that's a little benchmark for someone, what is that, like $250 an hour typically? So pay for their expenses if they're flying in, pay for their hotel, all of that kind of stuff. So it's really, I budget about $10,000 for my advisory board, but the value that they bring to me, even if I had the funds to, pay $100,000 and get, a level of expertise that I felt like I needed. I feel like these guys, honestly, I think these guys are doing, like one of them just tells me to give it to charity. Like
That's amazing.
None of them need $500.
No, I would imagine.
It's more of the process of you're putting in time for me, so I want to appreciate you in that way. But honestly, all of them could demand thousands of dollars for a meeting,
right?
Not 500. So, but it's just a thank you for your time.
Yeah.
Take out to dinner. Take your kids to the park. I don't know. But I think if you have relationships with people and that ask it, and especially I think just totally Shannon's opinion, if you tell them it's not a life sentence and we're not asking for a 10-year commitment or even a 3-year commitment, this is, let's see if this works for us. If it doesn't work for us, then, and honestly, if it doesn't work for me either,
right.
We have exited someone from our advisory board already, and it's only been in play 3 years. And we just did that because they could never, they were never available for the meetings. And I was just like, hey, I need to replace you. That's not exactly what I said, but I was like, hey, I know you haven't had time to go to these meetings, because he had a life change in the time that I asked him to be on the board. And, these things happen. Your life changes, your work-life balance changes, and then all of a sudden you can't give the time you thought to something. And I kind of wanted to let him off the hook, like, don't feel guilty. I'm still going to use you, and if I need you on the phone, I'll call you when I need you. But you don't have to make a commitment to attending an advisory board meeting. So I think he was sad, but also relieved.
Yes.
You're like, I want to do this, but I don't really have time. So
yes. Did anybody say, I can't imagine anyone saying no to you, Shannon, but did anybody say no?
So when he exited, we need to fill his position. So I've spent about probably 3 or 4 months, like really praying about.
Yeah.
The rest of the advisory board and myself made a list, because at that point we had been together two years or so. We made a list of people who we thought could be in that position. And I made the ask to 2 different people, because I thought, well, if one doesn't say yes, I want the other one to say yes. What if they both say no, And so I made the ask to 2 people, fully knowing that I might get 2 people. And I would be just overjoyed with that. And the one that said yes, we communicated often. And the one that I still haven't heard from. So I took that as a no. I will see him here soon, and then I'll make fun of him for not getting back to me, and he'll make fun of me for not getting back to him. I mean, that's how that
Yes. Yeah. You'll see the person at IFA or something, which is the International Franchise Association conference, where I met Shannon for the first time. And they'll be like, oh, that's right. There's that email from you, right? Right.
Phone call. But I sent him an email, and I had a phone call with him. But I told him we're not in a hurry. So that may have been, I'm sure, like, he leads a huge brand with over 1,000 franchises. And I'm sure he is in the weeds of his own growth stage, and it's not the right time. And so it's easier sometimes not to answer and, than to pick up the phone and call and say, I think I'll see him and he'll be like, I haven't gone back to you,
That's Shannon, this is so good. And I feel like it's so helpful. And I think there's probably a whole handful of people that are watching that are like, oh, I need an advisory board. This is amazing. I didn't even know that this was a thing. Like, I think that it's going to be mind blowing to people who are in growth mode.
Like it has helped me, Laura. I mean, I honestly, to me, it's been a huge shift. And, they don't have voting. So they're, I'm not going to them saying, would you please vote on this? Like a real board. Yeah. There's no Robert's Rules of Order like the other boards that I'm on. It's really just, hey, these are the agenda items. I'll tell you what the hardest part of it is the updates. So unless you're a really detail-oriented person, which that's not me, I send them an update a week before the advisory board meeting. And that gives them time to read the 8 or 10 or 12 or 30 pages that I happen to send them on what's happened in the last 3 months and where we're going. And the agenda always has the first 4 things on the agenda are the standing agenda items, which are, we need to talk about the finances or even just touch on it. We need to talk about the marketing. We need to talk about the operations, and we need to talk about development. And so I give them updates from all of those departments a week ahead of time. And then there's this section for new business. So if we're thinking about doing something extra or want their expertise in something as a group, I'll put that there. The last section is what keeps me up at night. Shannon's concerns.
I love that.
And lots of times that's like, oh, I'm being a sucky leader right now. Give me some advice, or I don't know how to handle where this particular project or whatever is going. I don't know how to get out of it, or I don't know how to move it forward. And they're able to then give me good advice. I'll tell you that one of the guys on the board also coaches me on the side, and he said, Shannon, like you're the most excellent person to have to advise because you execute on our suggestions.
Yeah.
And I think, it's really important to keep in mind, if you're asking for someone's advice, even if you don't take it, get back to them and say, thank you for that advice. We chose to go a different way, and here's why.
Yeah.
Because, they're spending their time, effort, and you know how it is when you give someone advice, even in a spousal relationship, you give someone the advice and they don't take it. You're like, well, why'd they even ask, or why'd they ask my help? And so I think if you're asking questions and want to move forward, the people that you're asking their advice, you need to be able to fully trust that they have your best interest and that they understand your culture, right? Because it's hard for that was a big thing when I talked about my culture. We have a Christian company, and you don't have to be a Christian to be a part of my advisory board or even a franchisee or part of my staff, but you better believe it that you're going to know that I'm a Christian.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I wanted them to know that, hey, we're going to start our meetings in prayer, and we're going to end our meetings in prayer. And if you're not okay with that, you probably need to say no. And I'm going to talk about what the Lord is doing in my business in these meetings. And if that makes you uncomfortable, you probably should say no. And I'm going to give you personal prayer requests in my updates. And, it might have nothing to do with the business. And I'm happy to pray for you, your personal stuff too. I don't know. I went from I feel like they're friends.
Yeah.
Because they know they have your back. And so I trust them, and I know that when they're giving advice, it's based on their knowledge of where I am in my role, and not just ancillary advice, anecdotal advice that they would give to anyone. They're really taking my story and my position and my beliefs and my culture into their advice.
And as I'm listening, what's so neat is that I'm hearing, as you were talking, I was kind of hearing what their objections might be. Like, well, how would I get somebody to do that for me for such little money? Or how would I find these people? And couple things that are standing out to me while I'm hearing you speak, which is, first of all, is just ask. Just ask. Yes. The second thing is be fun to coach. Be somebody who's fun to coach. Yes. And I've been a part of coaching programs, and I offer coaching programs. And it's always the people that are enjoyable to coach that get the most out of it, right? Because you're going to do more for that person. Right. Like if you show up with a smile and you're like, wow, I haven't thought of that. That makes me uncomfortable, which is probably good. Yes. So let's step into this. Let's walk into this. Or when you weigh it against maybe something that they didn't know about your company, but you get back to them on that, that makes you fun to coach. It makes you fun to be around. And most very successful people didn't get there by being selfish and hoarding all their knowledge. Right. People are successful because they've been generous. They like seeing somebody like Shannon or like me or like you, the listener, win. They like that. They enjoy that. It's part of their giving back. So when you're taking action, do it with that idea of like, they want me to win, and this is something they enjoy doing, and if they have time for it, they're going to say yes.
Yes. Yeah, agreed. So I want to give an example. I don't know how much time we have.
Yeah, a few minutes left. Yeah, please.
There's a gentleman here. I say gentleman. He's 27. He's so young. Like my own
kid,
about to be 25. And when he reached out to me last year through a mutual friend, I think someone had said, "Hey, you need to talk to Shannon." So anytime someone is thinking about franchising locally, my name comes up, and they'll be like, "You need to have a conversation with Shannon." So I do this often, and so they'll bring me. Set up a meeting, a phone call, a breakfast, whatever. And so last year I got a call from this guy who had a concept that he had started. They were about a year into their concept, and his goal was like every entrepreneur that I've ever met, grow it and sell it, right?
Yeah.
Grow it and sell it. And that's your goal. So he came to me and I was like, well, you're not ready. And honestly, I gave him an hour and a half worth of what I felt like was raining on his parade or crushing his dream or whatever you call it. Like you're far away from where you need to be. And in order to scale this, like you've got a lot of work to do. And he took copious notes the whole time we were meeting. And then he went back to his office and typed up his next steps, wrote out the notes that he said, "This is what I heard you say. This is what I'm going to do. Are we on the same page?" And I was dumbfounded. I was like, wow. I mean, he looked sharp. He had done some great things in his business where it was succeeding locally. But I was like, there was this huge gap in what I felt like where he needed to be. And that's okay, because you have to start somewhere, right? You have to start somewhere. I started in my living room, Yes. And so when he sent that to me, I was like, okay, this is not normal. Like I mentor people, coach people. Most of the time it's a conversation. They take notes, but I think that was the first time ever someone had gotten back to me same day, like within a couple of hours, with what they were going to do based on what I had said. And it made me feel good.
Yes.
Like, he actually heard me. I just wasted an hour and a half. And so exactly what you are saying. And so that was a year ago. And he reached out last month and he said, "Hey, Shannon, it's been a year. And I'd like to meet with you again, show you where we're at, show you our plans, get your advice again." So met with him last Friday and met with him again. Same thing. He took copious notes. When we got home, I had said, "You need to connect with this person. You need to connect with this person. You need to go to this conference. You need to listen to this podcast." But I mean, I probably overwhelmed him. Then he went home. He said, "These are my next steps. And these are your next steps, Shannon's, because you're going to make introductions to these 3 people. And you're going to send me that and show me where I can find this." And so I got his notes back and my next steps and his next steps. And I was like, okay, well, I can't be the slacker here. And so I didn't have time to do it. And I went ahead and did it. So I was like, we cannot do this. Tara, I'm on a video podcast, and I thought,
Hey, Tara.
so I got to call you back, okay? Love you.
That's Shannon's twin sister. So it's so funny on the technology note, before we started this video, Shannon and I were like, okay, so how do you shut off so like nothing dings and nothing rings? And I'm like, I think it's airplane on the phone, then it doesn't come to the computer. So Shannon just proved herself right about the whole thing, like needing technology help just right now. So
yes, it's so true. And I did know, but she FaceTimed me. And so it came through for whatever reason.
Yes.
Multiple texts and stuff, and the phone has rung multiple times over here. But
she's probably like, well, how did Laura end up in Shannon's office? And so she's probably all confused right now. So sorry to bring you ladies on this road with us, but it's like, or men too. There's probably some men watching. Sorry to bring you down this whole path with us, but I think that was a great place to kind of like, wrap it up. That was an awesome, and on the coaching side, and I have to say from my perspective of having Shannon help me when I was franchising my business and scaling and growing, it was such a blessing. And Shannon and I met like at a franchise conference, and I was like, oh my gosh, I've been to your sales. They're so great. And she was like, great. And like, I was like, there's no way she remembered me. 6 months later, she called me and asked me to be part of her Christian-based mastermind retreat. We call it the Advanced Group, which was one of the biggest blessings in my life, my career to date there's amazing relationships that lasted well past the point where I was franchising my business, which was amazing. So I think that's a great place to end, is like, and that's how I know, if you're like, how the heck does Laura know Shannon's twin sister? That's how I know her twin sister. And I would just say that, like, whenever you go into any relationship, think about what you're giving the person that you're asking first. Yeah. And when Shannon approached me, I was immediately like, wow, what could I do for you in return? Like, how can I contribute to this group? What can I bring to the table? Because I was the baby of the group. There was national brands that were part of our advanced group.
The smart baby.
Thanks so much. And it's this whole idea of cultivating relationships and never knowing. Maybe that person will be on your advisory board. Maybe they won't. Maybe it's somebody who could be in a masterminds with you. And always thinking, like, what can I do to contribute before I take? If you can just keep that mindset going, if you're kind of listening to Shannon and you're like, how did she get up with this person and with that person? How are people seeking her out? It's that constant cycle of contributing without worrying too much about what you're going to get in return, and trusting that the Lord rewards generosity, and having that trust and that faith and his favor on your life and leadership. Yeah. So that was a fun it helped us turn to our own personal story. Yes. So if you want to contact Shannon, if you want to go to a local sale, if you just want to say hi, if you want to love on her on social media, you'll find all the information below this video. She would love to hear from you. And thank you, Shannon, for just being so honest and transparent and being you, which I knew that as part of this series that you would bless so many people. And I think that advisory board idea is something that, I think there's going to be so many leaders who didn't even know that they needed it. Yeah, until they hear it. So thanks again for joining us.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.